rebrand Air India and more. Nationwide Jain protests also. We'll be joined by Jain Muni Praman Sagarji Maharaj. Why is it that the Jain community in several parts of India has hit the streets? But first, as always, it's time for the 9 headlines at 9 tonight. New CCTV video adds fresh twist to Anjali death case. Images show a police van on the same stretch as the Baleno just minutes after the car dragged the 20-year-old to death. The shocking story of Anjali. Another horror on the capital streets. A 19-year-old dragged inside a car and threatened with an acid attack by a stalker. The accused has been arrested. Drunk flyer who urinated on a female passenger on an Air India flight is banned by the airline for 30 days. The female passenger claims the crew in business class was uncooperative. The question is, why has the guilty person not been named and shamed? Orange alert sounded as Delhi records coldest day of the season at 4.4 degrees. Cold wave also likely to grip northwest India for the next 4 days. Sonia Gandhi admitted to Delhi Sir Gangaram Hospital for a viral respiratory infection. The UPA chairperson was last seen at the Congress Foundation Day event. Cricketer Rishabh Pant airlifted to Mumbai's Kokilaben Dhirubhai Ambani Hospital. He will undergo surgery for his ligament injury. Pant survived a car crash last week. The Jain community protests nationwide. Demonstrations over Jharkhand's plan to develop a revered hill temple of the community over a desecration incident in Gujarat. President gives assent to the Gujarat bill that gives police power to act against protesters. Bill seeks to make any violation of prohibitory orders under Section 144 a cognizable offence. And the energy crisis in Pakistan worsens. The government announces it will curtail power consumption by 30%. This amidst the rise in Taliban terror as the economy falls. But first tonight, right at the very top, India Today has now accessed the detailed post-mortem report in the Anjali death case, the shocking hit-and-run road accident where a woman, Anjali, was dragged for 12 kilometers on New Year's Day. The autopsy shows brain matter missing. No alcohol was in the body. So reports that Anjali may have been drunk are now being denied by that report. 14 to 15 injuries she suffered after her death, most of them as a result of the manner in which she was horrifically dragged by a car on New Year's Day. Tragically, the lungs have popped out of Anjali's body. The autopsy says fracture at the lumbar region of the spine. So she was hit, remember, by the car, which then dragged her for 12 kilometers. Meanwhile, one more CCTV video emerging from the night that 20-year-old Anjali was hit. The new video shows the Baleno on a stretch of road with all 5 accused in the car and drunk driving. Minutes later, a PCR van is seen on the same stretch of road. Were the cops not checking for drunk drivers in the area that night is a question that is now being raised. We're joined by Shreya Chatterjee, who's been tracking that story for us. Shreya, the post-mortem report clearly suggests that Anjali was not drunk. It also seems to suggest that the injuries that she suffered were grievous in nature, not just from when she was hit by the car, but also by the manner that she was dragged. What more can you tell us? What is the police saying?
Well, Rajdeep, I'll just first explain about the injury part. Now, the post-mortem report very categorically pointed out that there were 14 to 15 ante-mortem injuries, which ideally means that even after she died, there were injuries that she received. There were brush burns, the brain matter was missing, and her lungs had popped out. These are very serious piece of information that we got from the postmortem. Now, the second part, the fact that whether this postmortem is enough to substantiate that whether Anjali was in an inebriated condition or not, there's a slight confusion in that. In this postmortem, where it details about the abdomen, it only mentions that there was semi-liquid substance found. So that is not somewhere down the line enough to substantiate whether or not that she was in a drunk condition or not. We'll have to wait for the visceral sample report, which will be shortly coming out in 2 to 3 days' time. And this is something that we have confirmed from the FSL. So today's PM report that we have accessed, it's not enough to substantiate. However, the family members who are still grieving the death, they are using this PM report to claim that this is enough to substantiate that she wasn't drunk. But we have to wait for some more time to at least confirm whether or not she was actually in an inebriated condition.
Shreya, the CCTV footage that we are showing shows a police van moving around in the same area. So clearly the police did not do enough to check what was happening at the time. Are police officers going to be held accountable, beat constables, those in the area? Is there a process now starting to hold them accountable?
Well, yes, absolutely. There is a process that's put in place, because the MHA ordered an inquiry, which is now being headed by Special CP Shalini Singh. Today, while coming out from the police station, she very categorically mentioned that she'll be submitting a report on the lapses that the police has done. There's absolutely no question on the lapse that the Delhi police has done. Today, CCTV proves that on that very stretch, there was a PCR, and that was also behind this Baleno car. So definitely, the police had failed in manning the outer part of Delhi, where this girl was dragged for the 13 long kilometer stretch. So there's no possibility that the police could escape from the duty that they have completely failed at in this situation.
Okay, Shreya Chatterjee joining us with all those details. We'll, of course, keep tracking this story, which we've been highlighting over the last few days. I want to turn from that shocker to another shocker. If you were outraged by viral videos of obnoxious flyers fighting mid-air or screaming at flight crew, you've seen nothing yet. In a shocking incident, a drunk man allegedly exposed himself and urinated on a female passenger in business class. Now, this happened on an Air India flight on the 26th of November. But it's only now, after the concerned passenger complained about the behavior of the co-passenger to the Tata Sons chairperson in a letter, that the passenger who was guilty has been banned for 30 days by the airline. The question is, why has that passenger not been named and shamed? Why has he not been arrested? Why is the passenger still in a position to fly after 30 days? Some of the questions that we will raise tonight. Take a look, though, at another shocking report.
It's total luxury in the sky. You've just spent over 3 lakh rupees. You flew business class on this Air India flight to New York. And now you're on your way back home to Delhi. After you finish your finely crafted business class meal, you hunker down for some rest before arrival. The cabin lights are dimmed. The gentle hum of the aircraft lulls you into what you hope will be some sleep. Except you heard the sound of water splashing down on you in the dark. And in a moment of horror, you realize it isn't water, because there's a dark figure looming over you, urinating in your lap. Close your eyes for a moment. We wish we were making this up, but we are not. This really happened on November 26 last year to a lady senior citizen on an Air India flight from New York to Delhi, who shot off an anguished letter to N. Chandrashekaharan, chairman of the Tata Group that now owns Air India. The lady passenger says she had just finished lunch and the lights were switched off in the cabin. One of the other business class passengers, totally drunk, walked up to her, unzipped, and began urinating all over her. After he finished, he simply walked back and sat in his seat. According to the complaints, the crew didn't respond appropriately, and only after the traumatized passenger went to them did they attempt to cleanse the seat and offer her a crew seat for the remainder of the flight. Worst of all, the drunk offender was allowed to simply leave after the flight landed. It was over a month later that Air India complained to the Delhi police on December 28, forcing an FIR to be registered. Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, the Air India urinating incident is the latest in a string of on-air scuffles between passengers or between those on board and the flight crew. Remember, This is unacceptable behavior, but we've seen on the 29th of December 2022 a shocking video that has surfaced of a mid-air altercation on a Thai Airways flight from Bangkok to Kolkata. Two Indian passengers were engaged in a heated conversation which ultimately turned into an ugly brawl and fisticuffs were exchanged. Barely a week before this incident, another video surfaced of an Indigo flight passenger's rude behavior. This passenger was caught on camera berating the flight attendant over food choices, but this time the flight crew did not take any brazen insult from the passenger lying down and responded angrily. Either way, all these incidents are raising several troubling questions that we want to raise tonight. Why didn't Air India act for this long in this case that took place on the 26th of November? Is it time to name and shame and crack down unruly flyers? Is the boorish behavior hitting brand India? Why isn't the passenger arrested? Some of the questions we will raise tonight. It's time for our talking point. Joining me now on our talking point tonight, Jitendra Bhargava, former Executive Director, Air India, who's also been head of in-flight services when he was at Air India. Also with us is Captain Debolina Das. She's a commercial pilot, consumer activist. Bejon Mishra joins me, and I'm also joined by Parvez Damania, who's been an expert on the aviation sector, former ED also at Kingfisher Airlines. Appreciate all of you joining us. I want to come to you first, Jitendra Bhargava, because Air India is in the spotlight for the wrong reasons yet again. The fact is that this incident, shocking incident of urinating on a co-passenger in a business class at Air India happened on November 26th. It's come to light only now because finally a complaint was given to Chandrashekaharan at Tata's, and only when it was escalated has Air India acted and DGCA acted. And even so, the passenger's only been banned for 30 days from flying. I mean, what does it suggest about the way Air India handled this entire incident?
You know, the incident is undoubtedly shocking. We haven't had a case where a business class passenger urinates on a lady passenger in business class. You've never had it. November 26, you're very right that this is surfaced a good 7 weeks later. Now, why did it take so long? And if Air India is acted, why is it acted? The entire story that is in public domain is based on a letter written by the agreed passenger to Tata Sons chairman. Now, the question is, must we take all the contents of the letter as gospel truth? So what I did was, having been in Air India's in-flight services, I called up one of the crew members on board. I said, look, there is a serious kind of attack on cabin crew's ability to assist the passenger on board the flight. She said, and I'm discounting, and I wouldn't take it as gospel truth either here. She said, sir, we extended all possible help. I said, tell me, then why is it that she's written such a stinging letter to the chairman? And why did Air India did not act? She said, sir, one possible thing that I can allude to is that on board the flight, the passengers, the two passengers involved, the culprit passengers and the agreed passengers, had worked out on an understanding. Now, whether that was right, legally right, wrong, I'm not going to pass judgment on it. And that is why it was reflected in the report, and I can vouch for it, that after every flight that is operated, the in-flight crew writes a detailed report and submits it, narrating what has happened on board the flight, and said, we recorded the whole conversation between the two passengers, between the neighboring passengers, and got another passenger to comment on it. So what we are reading in the newspapers is not entirely correct.
No, the facts are not disputed, Mr. Bhargava. The facts of the drunken passenger urinating on a co-passenger is not being disputed.
There are three aspects to it. One is the urination action. The second is cabin crew not extending requisite help. And the third thing, Air India taking delayed action.
Yes.
My answer was to all three questions here that the delayed action was possibly because they felt everything has been settled. And it must have taken some time for the letter to percolate downwards from the Tata Sons chairman's office to Air India for them to act and the media to highlight it, which is justifiably.
No, Mr. Bhargava, everything has been settled means nothing. Tomorrow, I punch a fellow passenger in the business class. and then I settle it between us, does that mean no action is taken? My point is, the individual has been banned for 30 days. Clearly, it has been seen as a serious enough offense to say a 30-day ban. Many will say he should be banned for a year at least. Some kind of message needs to be sent out. This is not some internal issue that can be settled between two passengers.
Rajdeep, there are two aspects to it. One, if there was no compromise and the passenger was really aggrieved, the company would have taken a certain stance. But having had some kind of a compromise, the company did not take, and I fully agree with you. The 30-day punishment is not adequate for it.
Okay.
For much smaller instances, you can declare him an unruly passenger, get not, why only Air India ban, all airlines put together. And that's the policy of the Government of India, Ministry of Civil Aviation, that if a passenger can be unruly on one airline, there is no guarantee he will not be unruly on another airline. So ban him on all flights.
Okay.
But we must look at the other side, the Air India version. As I've always maintained, Air India is slow in coming out in public on what it has to say. And today again, there has been no mention on what they really felt or what the cabin crew reported in the reports submitted after the flight had landed at Delhi airport.
Okay, let me bring in Captain Deepanita Das. Captain, if you were the pilot of this flight and this was reported to you by the crew, what would you do? I mean, what should the crew ideally have done? Apart from providing some help to the woman concerned, could they have done much more in restraining this particular individual? Should they have ensured on day one, irrespective of any compromise that was being reached, that this individual was seen as a flight risk and therefore served a severe ban, or at least the process initiated to ban him from flying for all airlines?
Yes, so I will definitely consider whatever Air India has taken into consideration, that what was done by the cabin crew or full assistance was given or not, and what all steps they took to mitigate the situation. But said and done, if something so shocking is happening on a lady who is 70 years above of age, firstly, she is an old lady, and secondly, she's a lady. And a man doing something in business class is just beyond our imagination. So in such cabin crew giving adequate, it should be overboard assistance to the lady. Other than that, just after landing, there should have been a report sent to me if I was the captain of the flight, and I would have put a warning letter, which is within my jurisdiction authority to do it, given a warning letter to the passenger and handed him over to the company security or the BICAS security, that is the security in the airport.
He should have been probably handed over to the security the moment the flight landed.
Definitely.
Am I correct?
As soon as the first of all, he should have been segregated and put somewhere from the start. When the incident happened, he should have been kept under watch, away, segregated, and somebody should have been assigned to take care of his movements, his whereabouts, his action. And as soon as the flight lands, a warning letter has to be issued to him and he has to be given to the security of the company.
Okay. You know, Bejon Mishra, you are a consumer activist. Now, in this instance, as I said, the lady has finally written to the Tata Sons chairperson, Mr. Chandrashekaharan, and that's when the wheels seem to have started moving and action seems to have taken. Do you believe that in general, passengers in this country believe they can get away with a lot? We are going to just now play a video of a drunken brawl that took place in December on a Bangkok to Kolkata flight reportedly, which has also gone viral. We'll play that video in a moment. Again, it appears that passengers seem to get away with a lot, that they can get away in a flight because they seem to believe that the airline will not act against them.
Yeah, Rajdeep, in fact, I was going to quote that incident which you just now quoted, where the passengers feel very threatened to travel because they feel so insecure and they're not safe. You know, if supposing somebody does any kind of an, action which is illegal, then how do you expect the passengers to feel protected and secure? So there should be some kind of a protocol. In fact, let me tell you, Rajdeep, the grievance redressal mechanism within all airlines, cutting across all airlines in the country, is extremely poor, let me tell you, on board. And as Captain mentioned, You see, captain should have been the first person to know about this incident. The captain should have already alarmed the ATC that such a passenger is on board. Please get the police and the security as soon as the aircraft lands, so that there is a detailed investigation and the person is handed over to the security. There should have been on the spot interrogation, for such behaviors. So
Can
my
I, can I,
question
can
is,
I for a
why does
moment,
the
I'll come back to it. You're saying that you need to do more, but Parvez Damania, the rules are very clear. The Office of the Director General of Civil Aviation's rules, requirements for dealing with disruptive, unruly persons are very clear. Passengers can be refused embarkation, can be offloaded. There is a mechanism to detect unruly passengers, file an FIR with the security agency at the airport. So there is a clear rule. Do you believe, though, at times, cabin crew can be intimidated, particularly if the passenger involved is a VVIP who's sitting in business class?
No. The question, there is a fixed protocol defined what is to be done. And I don't think that protocol was followed. There is nothing like a compromise has reached between the two passengers, so there's no question of reporting. The air hostess should have immediately informed the commander. He should have been segregated. There should have been kept a check on him. The minute he landed, he should have been handed over to the police or BICA security. Inquiry should have been launched. He should have been not allowed to board the flight. And DGCA should have been informed immediately, and an inquiry should have been launched. Now, I don't know at what stage DGCA was informed, because this is a great risk. And another thing, everybody's talking of the urination part, which is itself is very embarrassing. But even exposing himself to a lady under Section 509 is a criminal offense. So that nobody's talking. That itself is a criminal offense, that he exposed himself to the lady. And so as it is, a crime has been committed. So it's just not a question of urinating, but exposing himself is a very, very serious offense. And what I read, that the lady was made to sit in the jump seat. There were first class seats empty, still they were not offered. I don't know what the facts are, but what happened is extremely shameful. And he should have been on a no-flight list of not only Air India, but on all and every airline. I don't understand how he was just allowed to deboard. No police was informed, no BCAS was informed. So I think somewhere the cabin crew is at fault. The commander should have taken responsibility, and I'm sure there will be a very proper DGCA inquiry and action will be taken. But there is a very laid down protocol which I feel was not followed at this stage.
Mr. Bhargava, since you have been speaking to crew, given your past contacts at Air India, what do they say? Was this particular passenger a VVIP? Was he someone who was throwing his weight around? Were they intimidated by him? Why did they not hand him over to the security on landing? You saying there was a compromise struck with the two passengers. Come on. I mean, urinating on a seat and, exposing your private parts is a violation of the law. Forget about anything else. There cannot be a compromise in a case like this. So what was the crew's explanation for not bringing in the security right away, the moment they landed at the airport?
Rajdeep, since all the three other panelists have made a point, whether the captain, pilot in command was kept in the loop or not, let me say he was kept in the loop, and the cabin crew was acting as per his directions. That's the first part. Second, as I've said very clearly, yes, it's a deplorable act. And I've also stated very categorically that he should not only be barred by Air India for 30 days, for a longer period by all airlines. He deserves this as minimum punishment. The fact is that cabin crew are trained for all kinds of emergencies. There could have been lacuna subject to anybody's interpretation, but till we are privy to the report submitted on what exactly happened, what were the dimensions. As I said earlier, compromise between the two. Airline doesn't come into the picture at all in there. But airline, I would agree with Parvez when he says, should have proceeded on their own. It is obligatory on the part of the airline to keep the regulatory agencies informed that this is what transpired on board. There are so many instances when an airline hides a pilot while landing the aircraft, some kind of a small thing, do not report and they're hauled up. So there is no reason why an airline should not be asked as to why was the matter not reported earlier. And what
if
preventive measures
Parvez.
are proposed to be taken by
if
the
he
airline?
exposed
Yes,
himself,
Parvez
it's
wants
an
to respond.
embarrassing situation for the other ladies. There must have been other lady passengers. There must have been lady crew. Exposing himself itself is a criminal offense. This has offended every lady who was there, every air hostess on the flight. So a criminal act has occurred under Section 509. And even urinating in a public place, that itself is a criminal offense. So a criminal offense, there can be no compromise. The cabin crew and the commander, the airline should have taken their own action, whether the passenger wanted to file a case or report or not. So it's an independent. That the cabin crew and the commander's job was to take action according to the laid down protocol, which is very, very clear now.
What does this do, though, Jitendra Bhargava, to brand Air India? Here is an airline which is promising to be totally refurbished. Tata is going to take it over. How does this hit brand Air India? And importantly, in your tenure there, were there such instances, not of the same kind, but where passengers behaved in this unruly manner because they believe they could get away with it? Is this frequent or is this
No,
exceptional?
Rajdeep, let's look at it. It's not Air India centric. The passenger behavior, we've had the Indigo airline instance, we have another Thai Airways, we have many other airlines where passenger behavior is undergoing a change. Now, there has to be some kind of an understanding protocol maintained. That it, of course, the government of India did come out 4-5 years ago that unruly passengers would be barred from flying, etc. But is that enough of a detriment? I don't think so. The way these instances are growing, cabin crew, perhaps the training curriculum will have to undergo a change. It's no longer polite. I've been very often asked, since the passenger was in an inebriated state when he did this, why was the cabin crew serving liquor? My counter question is always that if somebody is to go to the media and say that, look, I was a business class passenger, the cabin crew of Air India refused to serve me the third or fourth drink, it would make again headline that Air India is being stingy. So it's both ways to look at.
No, but the fact is it cannot be a 30-day punishment. You agree with that?
I agree
basically
with you,
it has to be a much longer
100%.
one because that is no deterrent.
30 days punishment is too
criminal
meager.
action should have been initiated by the police. No.
Okay, so you're saying,
It's
Parvez,
just
you're
not a
saying they
question
should have gone further and initiated criminal action given the kind of behavior. But Captain Das, is it as easy as we make it out to be here in the studio? You're dealing, let's say, with someone who's in business class. He or she throws their weight around. As a captain, have you faced such situations? Do you find that passenger behavior is changing for the worse at times? People believe that, they're flying, they can get away with it. I showed you the pictures of this fight that has taken place also on an airline last month.
So we have to realize the fact that the first-hand brunt is faced by the cabin crew. And many times these passengers, especially the people who are traveling in the business class, have the habit of throwing around their weight because of many circumstances, which we can come later on to. But this is a regular fact which is happening on a day-to-day basis nowadays. Now, definitely, as we mentioned before, there has to be a change in the training pattern of the cabin crew because over the years, the demeanor, the behavior of the passengers traveling in flights have been going from bad to worse. And to tackle this, there has to be a change in the training of the cabin crew. It is at times very difficult to tackle such situations. And so the commander is not facing the passenger face to face in flight. Yes, after flight, a disruptive passenger, we can go and face him. And definitely the pitching in of a commander makes a difference than how it is for the cabin crew. So to get them that authority, to make them react to a situation in a way in which the passenger will feel that he is crossing the limit and he has to stop there, has to come through the training. An evolved training pattern has to be there. And in many ways, we have seen that we are only concentrating on how to please or take care of the passenger, which is right in its own way. But we should take care and please a passenger when the passenger behaves like a passenger, when the passenger has crossed the limit of that behavioral threshold where he cannot be treated as a gentleman. There has to be a trained or a senior cabin crew taking charge of the situation and doing needful in the way which will come into her through a proper training.
That's a very important point. Bejon Mishra, there are passengers who believe that, once I'm on a flight, it's the airline's responsibility to look after me. And if anything goes wrong, I have every right to behave in the, that I, in a way, am the person in charge, not the airline. So consumers also need to recognize that they have a responsibility when they become a passenger. It's not just that they have a right to do what they please. That's part of the problem, the way consumers perceive themselves.
Well, I agree with you, Rajdeep, that when you assert your rights, you have to assert it in a very responsible manner. Now, what the captain also mentioned, you see, every passenger is not the same. So there has to be some kind of a skill set, soft skill set, trained crew members who should be able to handle different kinds of passengers in a different kind of a manner. So what I am trying to understand is that whenever any crew identifies a passenger who is not healthy, they have to ensure that they inform about such passengers immediately to their supervisors or to even the commander to take charge, to ensure that those kind of passengers are amply warned and they are told that, look, you cannot behave like this. And that has to be told, and there has to be a very deterrent action taken. Also, Rajdeep, we must remember, if the action is not taken, whether it's the crew, whether it's commander, if there is a lapse, if the passenger has done something wrong, then the culprit has to be punished. And that is not happening. And that should happen.
Parvez, do you believe that people believe they can get away with it?
No, but I'll tell you something. I think the people who behave in a crazy manner, do crazy things are very few. I think most passengers I've observed are very well behaved and obey the law and obey the rules. But of course, sometimes people turn up and after getting drunk, they did do act stupid things. I don't know if you remember this, but Damani Airways license was suspended for a week because two people got drunk. I mean, the airline paid the price at that time. But a stricter action taken, a police action taken, a criminal action taken would definitely deter passengers. People who travel business class need to fly all the time, need to go to places. Putting them on a low-fly list of all airlines for a more longer period would be a very serious deterrent. I wouldn't like to be put, or nobody would like to be put on a no-fly list.
Okay,
and
so
government
you need to start putting
more strongly.
Sure, you need to enforce the no-fly list more strongly. Final word, Jitendra Bhargava, from your long experience, VVIPs in particular. We don't know whether the individual here was a VVIP, but in general, for an airline like Air India, when it was in the public sector, more difficult to handle. Jante nahi main kaun hu. You must have had to deal with that.
No, but that was a different era when the government believed that every politician.
No, but did that happen?
The airline. It's no longer true. But you know, your earlier question, I missed out.
No, but did that happen? Did that happen often?
Oh, it does. We all know of instances when the flight was held up for various reasons, etc. People being upgraded recklessly and all those kind of things you're familiar with. But today, you know, when you look at, you ask this question, whether the crew gets intimidated with the stature of an individual, I don't think any crew member, when they're submitting their report, they religiously write the report as fairly as possible for the management to know what transpired on the flight.
Okay, let's hope therefore that this instance in a way serves as a warning. There is a stronger deterrent to the concerned individual. What happened on this flight is unacceptable. It hurts brand Air India, it hurts brand India, and it shows that these individual passengers need to be dealt with far more firmly than they have been in the past. I appreciate all my guests joining us here on this issue, which is really in the consumer interest at the end of the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And amidst all this, one final question that really we didn't raise with our panelists. Why the radio silence over this case for so many weeks? Why has the concerned passenger not been named and shamed? Who is this individual? Should he not be named and shamed? Is that not the very minimum that should happen now? Think about that. Let's turn from there to one of our political stories. After Acharya Satyendra Das, chief priest of the Ram Janmabhoomi temple, wrote to Rahul Gandhi backing his Bharat Jodo Yatra, now Mahant Janmay Sharan has also spoken in favor of the yatra. Remember, Satyendra Das had earlier written a letter to the Congress MP praising the objective of the Padyatra. In a letter he said, and I quote, "I hope and pray that the mission you're fighting for may be successful. You're working for a noble cause." Congress leader Rahul Gandhi's Bharat Jodo Yatra at the moment is going through Uttar Pradesh.
उनका भविष्य उज्जवल शतायु हो और उनका सामाजिक और देश के प्रति, समाज के प्रति और सबके विकास, सबके जन कल्याण के प्रति अग्रसरित इस प्रकार से कदम बढ़ती रहे और ये काफिलाएं उदयाचल से अस्ताचल तक चलती रहे और उनका भविष्य मंगलमय हो। मैं माननीय राहुल गांधी जी को बहुत बहुत मंगल शुभकामना देता हूँ।
उनको चाहते थे कि उसकी इनके यात्रा में सम्मिलित हो, जो उत्तर प्रदेश में प्रवेश कराए, तो हमने उसको इनकार कर दिया। हमको निमंत्रण पत्र दे गए थे, इसके पहले और भी संपर्क कर दिया। वीरू तिवारी हैं, बाद में उन्होंने कहा कि एक शुभकामनाएं का पत्र लिख दीजिए, तो हमने एक शुभकामनाएं पत्र लिख दिया कि उनकी यात्रा जो है मंगलमय हो और सर्वजन हिताय सर्वजन सुखाय हो, और इसी प्रकार से हमने एक पत्र लिखा है।
Let's turn from there to another of our big stories. Thousands of Jains have been out on the streets over the last few days protesting against two incidents related to their holy shrine. One of the issues is the categorization of a shrine in Jharkhand as a tourism destination. The other is a desecration of a shrine in Gujarat's Palitana. Never before have the Jain community got together to come on the streets in this manner. Take a look at this report.
Delhi, Mumbai, Ranchi, Surat. Jains have hit the streets in protest across the country. They are up in arms against a decision that changes the classification of Samed Shikharji pilgrimage site on Parasnath Hills. The root of the protesters' anger stems from the 2019 Jharkhand government's decision to designate Parasnath Hills as a religious tourism spot. The same year, the Narendra Modi government notified the biggest pilgrimage site for Jains as an eco-sensitive zone with potential for ecotourism. In 2022, the Hemant Soren government released a new tourism policy that mentioned Parasnath Hill as a religious tourism destination instead of a pilgrimage site.
ऐसे पवित्र तीर्थ स्थल की पावनता को बनाए रखना सबकी जिम्मेदारी है। सरकार की भी जिम्मेदारी है। सरकार को चाहिए कि उसे बना के रखे, क्योंकि जो नोटिफिकेशन हुआ है उसमें जो वर्णित बातें हैं उसको लेकर के समाज में अनेक प्रकार की भ्रम और भय आशंका भी है।
देखिए, हमारी पॉलिसी के पहले की जो पॉलिसी रही, जो पूर्ववर्ती सरकार की पॉलिसी रही, जो केंद्र सरकार का गजट नोटिफिकेशन है, पहले तो उसकी चर्चा होनी चाहिए। त्रुटि कहाँ है, गलतियां किसने की? आज इस सरकार ने तो, जो पिछली सरकार की अधिसूचना थी, केंद्र सरकार की अधिसूचना थी, इको टूरिज्म के नाम पर अधिसूचित किया गया, हम तो सेंसिटिव, हम तो उसी को मान के चल रहे हैं, उसी का अनुकरण कर रहे हैं।
There are other reasons for the Jain community's anger spilling onto the streets. The vandalization of a Jain shrine on Shatrunjay Hill in Palitana of Gujarat has also sparked outrage. A Jain saint's Charan Paduka, housed in the shrine, was desecrated on November 26th. Since then, the Jains have taken out around 85 rallies across the state in protest. The police arrested a suspect on December 23rd. They termed the incident a robbery bid. The community now wants the state government to declare Shatrunjay Hills as a protected site.
टूट-फूट करना, अत्याचार करना, अतिक्रमण करना, ये सभी कार्य हो रहा है। आदिनाथ दादा के चरण पादुका, उसको भी खंडित किया गया। सीसी कैमरे का स्तंभ भी तोड़-फोड़ दिया गया। पारसनाथ समेत शिखर तीर्थ, इसके ऊपर भी झारखंड सरकार ने उसको पर्यटन स्थल के रूप में घोषित कर दिया और इसके माध्यम से वहाँ पे सप्त व्यसन होने जा रहे, उस तीर्थ को भी पवित्र धाम घोषित करे, पर्यटक स्थल नहीं रखे। ऐसी हम झारखंड सरकार को एवं केंद्र सरकार को ये हमारा आवेदन दे रहे, हम विनम्रता से प्रार्थना कर रहे।
With political heat on the issue rising, both centre and Jharkhand government are reaching out to the Jain community for a peaceful resolution. Bureau Report, India Today.
So why is the Jain community so incensed? A community which is known to be always peace-loving, out on the streets. Praman Sagarji Maharaj is one of the leading Jain munis in this country. Namaskar, Maharaj ji. ये बताइए, Jain religion stands for peace, शांति का एक प्रतीक है. आज जैन समाज रोड पर उतर आए हैं, सड़क पर उतर आए हैं. आपके मुद्दे क्या है? इतना गुस्सा क्यों है इस बार?
हमारे कोई जैन समाज का कोई मुद्दा नहीं है. मुद्दा केवल एक है कि हमारे तीर्थराज संमेशिखर जी की सुरक्षा होनी चाहिए, इसकी पावनता को अविच्छिन्न बनाए रखना चाहिए. और पाली थाना में जिस तरह से हमारे मंदिर के ऊपर तोड़फोड़ हुई है, इस तरह की घटनाओं की पुनरावृत्ति नहीं होनी चाहिए. किसी भी तीर्थ स्थल की सुरक्षा करना समाज की, सरकार की जिम्मेदारी है और सरकार को ये जिम्मेदारी निभानी चाहिए. हम तीर्थ स्थल को तीर्थ स्थल के रूप में देखना चाहते हैं, इसे पर्यटन स्थल के रूप में कभी स्वीकार नहीं करते.
तो उस मुद्दे पर आते हैं. झारखंड में जहां आपका एक तीर्थ स्थल है, होली साइट है, जो सरकार ने, झारखंड सरकार ने फरवरी 2019 में इस पारसनाथ एरिया को टूरिस्ट स्पॉट का दर्जा दिया. अगस्त 2019 में केंद्र सरकार ने, सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने पारसनाथ पर्वत को इको सेंसिटिव जोन कहा, विद ट्रिमेंडस पोटेंशियल टू सपोर्ट इको टूरिज्म. इस तरह का दर्जा दिया गया. झारखंड सरकार का कहना है ये सब पिछली सरकारों ने किया. अब 3 साल बाद ये मुद्दा कैसे उठ गया? अचानक प्रोटेस्ट क्यों? Why are the protests happening 3 years after the notification of your holy site being made into a tourist center?
इसके प्रोटेस्ट की वजह यह है कि जब झारखंड सरकार ने या केंद्र सरकार ने यह सूचना जारी की तो उसकी कोई राष्ट्रीय और प्रादेशिक किसी भी समाचार पत्रों में कोई सूचना नहीं गई. हम लोगों को किसी को पता नहीं, जैन समाज इससे अनभिज्ञ रहे. नहीं मधुबन संमेशिखर जी के किसी संस्था को सरकार के द्वारा कोई आधिकारिक सूचना दी गई. तो समाज को इससे पता नहीं, इसका पता नहीं था, इसलिए उसको समाज को मालूम, समाज चुप थी. जैसे ही समाज को पता लगा, धीरे धीरे लोग आंदोलित हुए. इस बीच कोविड भी हो गया. अब जैसे जैसे लोगों को मालूम पड़ा तो लोग स्वतः आंदोलित हो गए. इसमें किसी ने आंदोलन किया नहीं, लोग आंदोलित हुए. क्योंकि संमेशिखर जी हमारा सर्वस्व है और सर्वस्व पर जब आघात पहुंचता है तो लोग उससे उद्वेलित होंगे, ये स्वाभाविक है. जो कुछ भी हो रहा है सहज स्फूर्त हो रहा है. यहाँ कोई भीड़ जुटाई नहीं जा रही है. लोग अपनी भावना से प्रेरित होकर के सारे कार्य कर रहे हैं.
You are saying these are spontaneous protests. ये प्रोटेस्ट स्पॉन्टेनियस है, बट झारखंड सरकार का कहना है अभी ग्राउंड पे कोई चेंज नहीं हुआ है. उनका कहना है, ये कहना कि वहां शराब आएगी, पूरा उस इलाके को बदला जाएगा. क्या कोई बातचीत चल रही है? क्या आप बात करने के लिए तैयार है? क्या आप डायलॉग के जरिए ये इशू सुलझा नहीं सकते? व्हाई इज इट नेसेसरी टू हिट द स्ट्रीट?
जैन समाज किसी से लड़ाई नहीं लड़ना चाहते, चाहे केंद्र सरकार हो या राज्य सरकार या कोई और समुदाय. जैन समाज तो अपने मुद्दों की बात करती है. सरकार अगर बातचीत से मुद्दा का हल निकाल लेती तो इससे अच्छी बात क्या है. और मुझे संभावना दिख भी रही है, बातचीत चल रही है. मैं पूरी तरह से आशान्वित हूँ कि बहुत जल्दी सरकार इसका एक बहुत ही सकारात्मक हल निकालेगी.
आज हमने प्रमण सागर जी ये भी सुना है कि एक 70 साल के जैन मुनि ने समाधि पद की है. वो फास्ट कर रहे थे. अगर सरकार बात करने के लिए तैयार है, क्या आप ये प्रोटेस्ट सस्पेंड अप करेंगे? केंद्र सरकार या राज्य सरकार के साथ बात करने के बाद विल दिस प्रोटेस्ट बी सस्पेंडेड?
अगर सरकार कोई आधिकारिक रूप से आश्वासन दे तो इस बात पर चर्चा की जा सकती है. लेकिन जिस तरह की बातें हुई है, क्योंकि पूरी जैन समाज भावनात्मक रूप से बहुत ज्यादा उद्वेलित है, तो मुझे नहीं लगता अगर सरकार ने जल्दी कुछ नहीं ऐसा हो सकता. कई मुनि, कई गृहस्थ, कई आम जनता इस बात को लेकर आंदोलित होंगे और इस तरह की घटनाएं अगर घटेगी. एक मुनि समय में हमारे बीच से चले गए, अगर उनकी प्राणाहुति संमेशिखर जी के नाम पर होती है तो सरकार के लिए बहुत सोचनीय बात है. देश के हित में भी नहीं है. साधु संतों का जीवन हमारे पूरे देश के उज्जवल भविष्य के लिए होता है, तो उसे तो सुरक्षित रखना ही चाहिए. और सरकार को शीघ्र इसमें पहल करनी चाहिए. जो भी मुद्दे हैं उनको बैठ के बातचीत करके समाप्त करना चाहिए.
सर, आखिरी सवाल, पॉलिटिकल ये इशू राजनीतिक रूप भी ले रहा है. कई राजनीतिक पार्टियां उठा रही है, कई जैन समुदाय के लोग से जुड़े हुए राजनेता उठा रहे हैं. क्या ये अब आस्था की बात रहेगी या एक पॉलिटिकल मुद्दा बनेगा? विल इट बिकम अनदर पॉलिटिकल इशू कि जैन समाज को टारगेट किया जा रहा है?
हम राजनीति को पसंद ही नहीं करते ना, हम राजनीति पसंद करते हैं ना राजनीतिज्ञों को पसंद करते हैं। जैन समाज का हमारा यही कहना, आप अपनी मांग कीजिए, आपका विरोध किसी सरकार से न हो, आपका विरोध किसी समुदाय से नहीं हो। हमारा एक ही मकसद है, सम्मेद शिखरजी की पावनता का क्षुण्ण करे, चाहे वो केंद्र सरकार का काम हो या राज्य सरकार का काम हो, जिस स्तर पर हो वो कार्य होना चाहिए।
Praman Swami ji, आपने हमसे बात की. I appreciate your joining us. For our viewers who are listening to it in Hindi from parts of the country which often object to Hindi conversation, just to say that here is Praman Sagar ji Maharaj, who is communicating that the Jain community wants a peaceful resolution of this issue that they have taken to the streets. They want to retain their pilgrimage center, do not want it to be converted in a manner that some of the traditions of the area get affected, as well as raising questions over the desecration of a shrine in Gujarat. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Let's turn from there to our story that we've been tracking in Haldwani near Nainital. Over 4,000 families this winter are out on the streets protesting. A few days ago, we did a story on that. Now, the High Court ordered eviction of all encroachments, illegal encroachments on the railway land in a week's time, has led to several of the people in the area hitting the streets. As many as 4,000 families are homeless. The fact is, many of them do belong to the minority Muslim community. Many of them continue now to protest, pray and beseech officials not to go ahead with the demolition. There are two sides to it. One, illegal encroachments, many would say, have to go. The other question is, why is this decision been taken now? Who allowed these so-called illegal encroachments to be set up in the first place? Are they being singled out, or will this happen across any encroachments in railway lands in the country? Here's our ground report.
This sprawling colony of Bhanbulpura is set to be demolished. Over 4,000 families are about to lose their homes. The Uttarakhand High Court recently ordered the entire colony built on railway land to be cleared out.
The Uttarakhand High Court in December ordered that all these establishments located in Haldwani's Bhanbulpura must be removed because these are encroachments. If you look at the landscape, what you will see is hundreds and hundreds of houses, pakka houses, multi-story houses, and right next to it is a government school. On the other side is a water head tank, and in the extreme left is a masjid that is located.
Life has come to a full stop for residents here. They have moved the Supreme Court and hit the roads in protest, demanding they be allowed to stay on.
कहाँ जाएंगे? 50,000 आदमी कहाँ जाएगा? कोई सरकार ने इसकी व्यवस्था नहीं करी है कि कहीं रखें, कहीं टेंट लगा के भी नहीं करी है और उजाड़ने की बोली है.
कहाँ जाएंगे सर? इतनी बड़ी आबादी है, 50,000 की आबादी है, कहीं किराए पे घर भी नहीं मिलेगा. आधे से ज्यादा आबादी तो उजाड़ दे रहे हैं.
Livelihoods are hit. Many of these shops have been here for decades, but now they are out of business.
हटाने का निर्देश तो गलत है ही, क्योंकि बहुत जो है अंदर तक आ जा रहे, इतना तो नहीं जाना चाहिए. और अगर हटाने की कोशिश की जा रही है तो हटाने से पहले बसाने का काम किया जाए.
फॉरेस्ट से भी रजिस्ट्रेशन है, सेल टैक्स से भी रजिस्ट्रेशन है, तो यहाँ जब सेल टैक्स ने रजिस्ट्रेशन किया होगा तो यहाँ आके दुकान देखी होगी, सब कुछ किया होगा. वैसे तो देता नहीं है सेल टैक्स.
4-5 हजार घरों का मामला, किसकी क्या चुवाई दे, किसकी क्या चुवाई दे, मैं एक अकेला क्या बता सकता हूँ इसमें. मैं तो यही चाहता हूँ कि जैसे रह रहे थे लोग वैसे ही रहते रहे.
Amid this gloom, all celebrations are on hold. Petitioner Abdul Mateen Siddiqui has put off his wedding.
जहाँ इतनी बड़ी तलवार अतिक्रमण के नाम पर लोगों के गर्दन पर लटक रही है, हमारा तो मानना सीधा सीधा यह है कि अगर एक भी घर अगर इस अतिक्रमण के नाम पर टूट गया तो हम तो शायद अपनी खुशी मना नहीं पाएंगे. तो इसीलिए हमने इसे होल्ड पर रखा है.
Officials have slapped eviction notices on many residents in accordance with the high order. Questions remain. Why were officials sleeping when acres of railway land was being encroached? And will the residents be provided relief? With Amit Bharadwaj in Haldwani, Bureau Report, India Today.
That's the question. What about the government officials who allow these encroachments to emerge, and it happens across the country? And then in the midst of winter, you suddenly decide that they have to be evicted. Think about that. Let's take a break. On the other side is our good news today's story. It comes from Mumbai. We'll tell you more. Why is this dog making the headlines? You're watching the news today. News without the noise. Let's turn to a story now across the border, because Pakistan is literally on the verge of bankruptcy, and yes, literally powerless. The Pakistan government has now ordered lights out in markets and malls by 8:30 p.m. to save on energy. Wedding venues have been asked to shut by 10 p.m. Why? Because the country is on verge of a default. How bad is it? Take a look.
Filling cooking gas in balloons, people in Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa are resorting to dangerous and desperate measures. For the cash-strapped nation with no natural supply to homes, an unprecedented economic crisis looms, facing free fall in essential items and expensive energy imports. In a recent announcement, the Pakistan government has now ordered malls and markets to close by 8:30 p.m. Wedding halls to shut by 10 p.m. Sharif government has also ordered all government departments to reduce electricity consumption by 30%. Half of the street lights across the country will remain on alternate days. Nightmare for summers, as even production of energy in efficient bulbs and fans will be banned from February.
बर में मौजूद तमाम शादी हाल जो है 10 बजे जो है वो बंद हो जाएंगे इंशाल्लाह। मार्केटें जो है वो 8:30 बजे जो है वो बंद हो जाएंगी। इस पॉलिसी से इस शादी हाल, रेस्टोरेंट्स और मार्केटों के ये अगर टाइम ऑब्जर्व हों तो 62 अरब रुपए की बचत होगी।
But in Lahore and Karachi, two big cities, traders refused to comply and have revolted, saying their businesses would be ruined.
बात यह है कि जब आपने हमसे तजावीज़ ले ली तो फिर आपने हमसे कहा कि ये मैं वज़ीर आज़म साहब के पास रखूँगा, वफाकी काबीना में ले जाऊँगा, उधर से फिर हम आपके साथ दोबारा मुशावरत करेंगे, लेकिन उन्होंने ऐसा नहीं किया और आज खुद से ऐलान कर दिया है कि ताजरों की मुशावरत से किया है।
8 बजे से लेके 10 बजे तक ही काम होता है, उसके अलावा सारे दिन तो काम होता ही नहीं है। यही थोड़ा सा टाइम होता है जो बंद करने पे आ गए, लेकिन हम नहीं करेंगे अल्लाह के हुक्म से बंद।
Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves barely cover a month's worth of imports, most of which are accounted for by energy purchases from abroad, with funds expected under an IMF program having been delayed. Pakistan's total liquid foreign exchange reserves stood at $11.7 billion to $5.8 billion with the central bank as of last month, having fallen 50% in 2022. Pakistan struggles to quell default fears in domestic and international markets, with $1.1 billion IMF bailout tranche stuck and delayed. Inflation being forecast to stay high between 21 to 23% in 2023. Recent floods caused economic losses of over $30 billion, and the country's debt has jumped to a record high of 60 trillion Pakistani rupees. Pakistan owes 30% of foreign debt to China. This means political slavery to dictatorial communist regime. Having already rented off diplomatic properties to fill coffers, the situation is only going from bad to worse. Bureau Report, India Today.
Troubling news from across the border. My simple question, why don't you spend your money on your economy rather than the general spending the money on exporting terror out of Pakistan? Well, away from all of that, our good news today story is where we end the show. It's from Mumbai, where a 4-year-old dog named Waffle had a life-threatening heart condition from birth. To cure the dog, a doctor specially flown from Germany has helped save the dog with an open heart surgery. 4-year-old Waffle is smiling, so should you. Stay well, stay safe, good night, Shubhratri, Jai Hind, Namaskar.
A new lease of life for 4-year-old Waffle. The Maltese breed dog was suffering from a life-threatening heart condition, but thanks to a German veterinary surgeon who flew all the way to Mumbai, he's back to his old playful self.
This was a machinery murmur which is very characteristic murmur. Unfortunately, due to COVID conditions, they could not go abroad and get the surgery done. However, until about 4 months ago, we could contact Dr. Matthias Frank, so we decided to call him up. And he, in about 1.5-2 months back, he came down, we examined the dog and then decided to go ahead with the surgery.
The tiny ball of fur was born with a congenital heart defect, a condition which hampers free flow of blood between the two main vessels of the heart, aorta and pulmonary artery.
For Waffle to even live up to 4 years was kind of a miracle for us, because this condition does start getting worse after like a year or so. But it was around this time that he had started getting bad. His condition had progressed. He was developing something called as a congestive heart failure. But I'm glad everything worked out and he's doing really well.
When 16-year-old Rehan Wankawala brought Waffle home, his family was hesitant because of the little dog's condition.
I was only 12 years old, so my parents decided to keep it a secret from me because they probably thought I wouldn't take it very well. So when I was 13 years old, my parents first told me about his condition, and they told me not to get very attached because they assumed that he wouldn't have a very long lifespan. So that was really difficult to take, and yeah, it took a little time to digest.
The family was advised a non-invasive surgery in the UK, US or Europe, but the COVID pandemic put a spanner in the works and Waffle could not fly abroad for treatment. This is when the family got a German vet to fly down.
According to doctors and Waffle's parents, he is a fighter because living with this condition till 4 years and then surviving the surgery was a big achievement. Also, doctors say that this surgery has given them more confidence to do open chest surgery and save much more lives. With camera person Samir Shanbag, Mustafa Sheikh for India Today.